Hey everyone, today we're diving into something really special. It's a powerful framework from the Philippines that's designed for those really tough, stubborn community problems. The ones that feel like they're just impossible to solve. It's an approach that takes all that frustration and channels it into real, focused action. So, let's jump in and see how it works.
You know that feeling, right? We've all been there. You're looking at a problem in your own community, maybe it's traffic or waste management or not enough green space, and you just feel stuck. It's that overwhelming sense that a challenge is so huge, so complicated, you don't have a clue where to even start. But what if there was a structured, step-by-step way to actually start making a dent?
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to talk about that unsolvable challenge and why it feels so tough. Then we'll introduce the hero of our story, LIKSI. After that, we'll get into the nuts and bolts, the LIKSI rhythm and its 5 movements. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to create real solutions for real communities.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the unsolvable challenge. This is all about naming that feeling of being totally overwhelmed. It's for those problems that just seem to stick around forever. No matter how many meetings you have or how many times you talk about them, you just never seem to find a clear path forward.
And look, feeling that way is completely normal. These big, complex problems are like a giant tangled ball of yarn. They've got tangled roots, so many moving parts, and trying to fix everything all at once, that's just a recipe for burnout. But here's the good news. There are ways to start untangling that mess, one thread at a time.
So, how do we start untangling that mess? Well, that brings us right to our next section, and to the solution itself. It's time to meet the star of the show, a powerful, super accessible way to create change called LIKSI.
So what exactly is LIKSI? Well, it stands for a really cool phrase in Filipino. Likas at Iteratibong kilos para sa Solusyong Iniaangkop. Roughly, that means natural and iterative action for adapted solutions. But the key thing to know is that this wasn't just invented out of thin air. It's actually a Filipino adaptation of a globally known strategy called PDIA. And the whole idea behind it is to stop making rigid 5-year plans and instead start experimenting, learning, and adapting as you go.
Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? Well, LIKSI runs on a really simple, predictable rhythm. Think of it like a steady heartbeat or a cadence that keeps the team moving forward, step by step without ever getting overwhelmed.
Every single cycle in LIKSI has this simple 2-beat rhythm. Beat 1 is pagsusuri, which is analysis. This is your thinking phase. It's where you study, you learn, you really try to understand the problem. Then comes beat 2, paggawa, which is action. This is your doing phase, where you roll up your sleeves and get to work. It's this constant, powerful cycle. Think, then do. Think, then do.
So, what keeps that rhythm going week after week? It all comes down to the absolute heartbeat of the LIKSI process, the weekly check-in. This is just a moment for the team to hit pause, reflect, and plan. It ensures you never lose momentum, and it's all driven by 4 incredibly simple but powerful questions.
First up, the team asks, what have we actually done? This is just about accountability. No fluff, just what concrete actions did we take this past week?
Next, and this is crucial, what have we learned? Because just doing stuff isn't enough. Action without learning is just busy work. This question forces you to pull out the real insights.
The third question requires some real honesty. Where are we facing challenges? You have to be open about what's not working, what roadblocks you've hit. Because if you don't name them, you can't solve them.
And finally, all of that reflection, what you did, what you learned, and where you're stuck, it all leads to the most important question of all. Okay, so what should we do next? These 4 questions are the engine that drives the whole process forward, week after week.
Okay, so we've got the weekly rhythm, we've got the check-in, but what do you actually do during the week? Well, that's where we zoom in on what are called the 5 kilos, or the 5 movements.
This process is just brilliantly logical. You start with step 1, linawing ang suliranin. You clarify the problem. You got to know what you're trying to solve, right? Then you define the steps you could take. And then you prepare those steps, which involves a crucial check we'll talk about in a second. Once you're ready, you implement the plan. You actually do the thing. And finally, you simplify the next step to make sure it's small and achievable. Then the whole cycle starts all over again.
So what is that crucial check I just mentioned? It's called APK. And you can think of it like a 3-legged stool for any solution you come up with. APK stands for Authoreda, authority, pagtanggap, acceptance, and kakayahan, ability. In other words, do you have the official authority to do this? Do you have buy-in and acceptance from the community? And do you actually have the skills and resources, the ability to pull it off? If you're missing even one of those legs, that stool is going to fall right over.
So, when you put it all together, you have the steady, iterative rhythm, these simple weekly check-ins, and these 5 really practical movements. What you get is more than just a process. You get a real working engine for creating solutions in your community.
I think this quote just captures it perfectly. Through its principles, we can launch effective solutions and achieve positive change. And that's the absolute key here. LIKSI isn't about finding one single, perfect, massive solution. No, it's about taking small, smart, deliberate steps, learning from every single one, and building momentum toward real, lasting change.
And really, that's the final takeaway. LIKSI gives communities the power to solve their own problems by breaking them down into pieces they can actually handle. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. What's that one persistent challenge in your own community that comes to mind? Using a framework like this, what small, simple first step could you possibly take, maybe even this week?